All right. Lately, I've been thinking about investment advice I wish I had heard when I was younger. Whether it be for my kids now or maybe children or grandchildren of our clients or really anyone who might just be starting to think about money. So I'd like to share some financial strategies I believe everybody that's younger or really everyone should be aware of. I'm heading into my 23rd year now as a financial advisor, and I really see younger investors needing investment direction all the time. So in this video, I'll share investing advice I wish I had heard in my 20s. Now, as a bit of a disclosure, I actually did hear some of this advice in my 20s. In fact, I heard some of it as a teenager because I actually started investing when I was 17. But some of it I know I didn't hear right then, and I know it would have been beneficial had I learned it sooner. So, number one thing to start with is don't wait. Start investing now. And really, this gets back to the power of compounding interest. There's a quote which is attributed to Albert Einstein, and it says, "Compound interest is the eighth wonder of the world. He who understands it earns it, and he who doesn't pays it." All right, so why did Albert say this? Let's look at a simple example. Let's look at an example with $1,000 invested at the age of 20 at 9% for 40 years. That would grow to about $31,400, which is pretty impressive. But what if you didn't wait? And what if you didn't start now and you waited 10 years until you were 30 years old? All right. So you only had 30 years to invest. That would grow to only $13,000, almost $300. So just by having those other 10 years, you gain more than $18,000, more than double just by starting early. Second example of starting early. Let's say you start with that same $1,000. And let's say you add that $1,000 a year for 10 years at a 9% return. But then you stopped adding that $1,000 after 10 years, and you let it ride for another 30 years without adding another dime. So your total invested was $11,000. It would have grown to almost $233,000, which is crazy. Let's compare that to somebody who waited those first 10 years and then decided to hit it hard with the same $1,000 and then adding $1,000 a year, but they did that for the full 30 years. So their total invested is $31,000, but it only grew to almost $150,000. So, as you can see, waiting is not what you want to do. So, number one, don't wait, start investing now. Number two on our list is starting small. Okay, so if you're 20 years old, you might not even have that $1,000 to start with, and it's okay because no one starts out as a millionaire. Everyone really starts out investing a little bit, and they add to it over time. So you don't want to wait until you have that chunk of money to invest. It's okay to start with smaller amounts and start investing systematically. And so here are two examples, again, kind of displaying that compounding interest for you. So let's say you had invested $50 a month at 9% for 40 years. That would actually have grown to a little over $204,000, which is amazing. It's amazing that a $50 a month investment could grow to that amount. Even better, what if you were able to invest $100 a month at 9% for 40 years? It would have grown to a little over $408,000. So I think that's really amazing is that starting with a little, you could have a lot down the road. All right, number three on our list. Inflation will destroy you if you don't fight it. All right, so we need to find investments that will outpace inflation. And really for the past 100 years in the US, inflation has averaged a little over or a little under 3% rather. And so what does this mean really? What is inflation? So whatever you are paying for a good or service now will cost more for that same or good or service in the future. That's what inflation is. So here's an example, and we're going to use stamps. And really, the price of stamps has mirrored this 3% almost exactly. And right now, if you look at stamps in 2025, they are at 78 cents per stamp. But if you go back 3 decades, 30 years ago in 1995, stamps were 32 cents. And if you do the math on that, that's basically about a 3% inflation rate over time. So what does this potentially mean for other goods at a 3% inflation? Well, look at tennis shoes. $120 pair of tennis shoes in 30 years from now is going to be like $291. Look at rent, $600 a month. Rent now in 30 years would be almost $1,500 a month rent. That $30,000 car, 30 years later is almost $73,000 to buy that same car. So we need to be able to fight inflation. All right, number 4, you need a financial advisor. You really need an expert to help you navigate through your investments that are going to help you fight inflation and take advantage of that compounding interest. That financial advisor, they're going to be your guide because you're going to have a ton of challenges and questions, not just now, but really over your investing lifetime. So they're going to help you with, how much should you be saving? How much should you be investing? Do you need life insurance? How am I going to save enough to one day retire or buy a house or buy a car or buy, any number of things that you might want or need in the future? That financial advisor, they're the expert, right? They're specializing in financial planning. You want one that has financial planning and they help with investments and they really have a broad knowledge base and they can really be the quarterback for you. All right, number 5, you're never too young to start a financial plan. So work with that financial advisor. Develop a plan that will work towards your dreams and goals. And make sure you're reviewing that plan on at least an annual basis. Number 6 for us, this is something you wouldn't think about as being younger, is you can actually open a retirement account, as soon as you start earning income. And one of those ways to do that is, you don't have to be old to open that retirement account, but if you are working for someone or for a business, take advantage of their retirement plan. You want to make sure you're getting all of the company matching and contributions. And usually what you're going to do is you're going to make some contribution from your paycheck. The company is going to provide some matching. And you just want to make sure you're contributing enough out of your paycheck to get all of the company dollars that they're putting in. And so really kind of a common example is if you're contributing 3% out of your paycheck, the company will maybe match 3%. But if you don't contribute, the company's not going to contribute. So we don't want to leave that free money on the table. Also, if you're not working for a company, let's say you're working for yourself, or maybe they don't have a retirement plan, you can start your own retirement investment. As long as you have income, you could be contributing to an individual IRA or maybe a Roth IRA. So make sure you're starting in retirement investments. Number 7, and this is actually one of the mistakes I see people making, is don't spend from your retirement accounts until your retirement age, over 59 and a half. So if you redeem some of those retirement accounts early, you will have taxes and penalties for using that money at too young of an age. And so that is one of the biggest mistakes people make, not just young people, but people of any age prior to that retirement age. So if I could tell you anything, don't do it. And if you follow the next advice I have, you shouldn't have to. And really number 8, which is our last one, is you should be building an emergency fund, right? So if you have an emergency fund, then you won't be tempted to spend from your retirement accounts. So we don't want to use your checking account as your emergency fund, as that's too accessible, and you're going to be more likely and more tempted to spend that money instead of saving it. So a high interest savings or maybe a high interest money market, those are 2 options that allow you to get a little bit of return on your money and keep that separate from your checking account in an emergency fund. So I hope this helps. I know if you're in your 20s, or really if you're any age for that matter, these 8 things are really financial strategies you should be aware of. And I know I threw a lot of information at you in really a short period of time. So if you have questions, I want you to call my office or send us an email. And also, please share this with somebody that you know and care about that really could benefit from this information. And ultimately, please subscribe to our channel, and we will talk to you next time.